last oxygen. Okay, he's taking his last oxygen. Why I'm saying this? Well, it is because we are now seeing reports coming both from Israel and also from media outside Israel. This is what they are saying. Quote, Netanyahu's rivals, they meet in secret, vow to topple government by this winter in a closed-door meeting without photos or Arab parties. Lapid, Gantz, Bennett, Lieberman, Eisenkot and Golan discussed plans to oust Netanyahu and backed Trump's plan to free hostages and form a healing, quote-unquote, healing government. He will be out very, very soon. Also, that was echoed by Donald Trump himself. When Donald Trump, he said that the Zionist lobby in the Congress is diminishing and that Israel do not have the power that they used to have over the Congress. Now, I want you to take a look at this particular commentary from Scott Reeder, and then meantime, I will at the same time, I'll give you more updates as to what really happened in that closed-door meeting. Take a listen.
It's a plan that's long overdue. Netanyahu has held on to this conflict because it's in his political best interest to hold on to this conflict. He is in dire political straits on the domestic front. He has he leads a coalition which is not doesn't have peace in its DNA. Let's put it that way. But he's confronted with a political reality in the United States that if he doesn't do what Donald Trump asked him to do at this point in time, American support for Israel is rapidly slipping away. Trump has already publicly noted that Congress is not under the control of Israel the way it used to be. And the whole Charlie Cook, crisis, after Charlie was murdered, you don't have an Israeli prime minister go on TV, not once but twice, say, I didn't do it. We didn't do it. Unless there's an underlying political fear that some people will think you did it. And why would he fear that? Because of, allegations that Charlie Kirk was turning away from Israel, along with a large part of the Christian Zionist, Christian evangelical movement that had long served as Israel's core foundation of support here in the United States. So, Netanyahu,
again, what went on during that meeting? Let's actually talk a little bit. Let's unpack a little bit about that particular meeting. So, key opposition leaders met on Wednesday in a private session to coordinate efforts to bring down Netanyahu's government as early as this coming winter parliamentary session. The gathering, which lasted about an hour, brought together opposition leader and Yesh Atid chair Yair Lapid, Yisrael, and then we have the former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, National Unity chair Benny Gantz, former Knesset lawmaker Gadi, Eisenkot, and Democratic Party leader Yair Golan. The Arab parties were not invited. Just shows how serious this issue is, that they are very, very calculated in what they are going to be talking about and how the meeting will take place, who will be invited, who will be left out. And this is also coming on the national. So there's another newspaper, they are reporting on this too. Prime Minister Netanyahu's opposition are coordinating efforts to bring the coalition government down within months. The leader of Israel opposition leader said on Wednesday, Yair Lapid, the leader of the centrist Yesh Atid party, said a recent meeting had focused on a campaign to topple the government as early as the winter parliamentary session. Now, if you do not know, when Donald Trump was giving a speech at the Knesset in Israel, he was heard praising the opposition party, and especially the leader, Yair Lapid. He was praising him when Netanyahu was sitting right there with Donald Trump. Why would he do that? Because Donald Trump, to me, looks like he doesn't really want to deal with Netanyahu anymore, because Netanyahu is not because he doesn't like Netanyahu, but I think the overwhelming feeling in the States, and elsewhere, like in Israel, is that Netanyahu is a complete failure. He could not give the Israelis and the Zionist lobby in America the victory they needed so desperately over Gaza in order to fulfill their ambition of a greater Israel. Netanyahu, they relied on him, they bet on him, they gave him 2 years, more than 2 years actually, billions of dollars to accomplish that job, to accomplish this mission. He couldn't do it. They have given up on him, in other words. And now he is, to me, looks like going to be facing trials very, very soon. But at the same time, you have also seen Donald Trump talking about forgiving Netanyahu. And he spoke to Isaac Hertz, the president of Israel, and requested him to pardon Netanyahu. So it looks like to me they're wrapping it up. They're wrapping it up on Netanyahu very, very fast. They're moving on from him. They will be replacing him with another monster, obviously. As long as the state of Zion, the Zionist state will exist, there will always be a monster there heading their government. But they are trying to get rid of him completely. Now, Scott Reeder, he said something very, very interesting about the recent development in Gaza. How Hamas, he sees, won this war, this fight against Zionist forces in Gaza. Obviously, we call that a genocide, not a fight, not a war, not a battle, not a conflict, as BBC, CNN, they want you to believe. But take a look what Scott Reeder is saying here.
Netanyahu, by continuing this conflict, may be preserving in the short term, a situation where he avoids being prosecuted in a court of law for corruption by remaining as prime minister. But he was setting up the conditions for the strategic defeat of Israel, and that would have also brought about his political demise. So he needed to find an off-ramp. And this peace plan, which I want to just quickly point out, is Hamas's demands that have been put in place since day one. So Hamas wins.
And I said the same thing. I agree with him, even though I don't agree with him on a lot of things. I'm talking about Scott Reeder, but I agree with him on this one for sure. This was a clear victory for the people of Gaza, and it was a clear and very, very obvious defeat for the Zionist forces, the terrorist forces idea. And this is what is bringing a lot of shame to them. And on top of this, I think this is a icing on the cake, and that is that when Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to travel to Egypt, because the initial plan was that he will be going to Egypt, Sharm el-Sheikh, for the 20-nation conference there for the Gaza Peace Summit. He almost flew. He almost took his flight. And when that was happening, Erdogan was already on his way to Egypt. And then what I understand from reports is that in the middle of it, Erdogan, when he was still flying over Red Sea, he said, turn my plane back to Turkey. I don't want to go to Egypt. Why? Well, it is because Netanyahu is going there, and I will not share a stage with that war criminal. And so his plane turned back to Turkey almost, and then they said, oh, wait a second, Netanyahu, we have now confirmation he's not going. He canceled his visit to Egypt. And then Turkish Erdogan was like, okay, let's go to Egypt. But it just shows how humiliated that person is, that monster is, Netanyahu. How much, dislike and despise he has, Erdogan has for Netanyahu. And also, I'm sure a lot of these leaders, including Sisi, and even though we know these are puppets, but a lot of people, they don't like him. They would not talk to him. They will not shake hands. So it will be a complete diplomatic disaster, in an epic level, had he gone to Egypt, because I don't think Pakistani Prime Minister would have shaken his hand with him. None of these things will happen, and it will be all caught on camera that nobody wants to talk to Netanyahu. It will be such an embarrassment on the world stage.
And that's the other thing we have to recognize. Donald Trump simply packaged it and sold it. So now the question is, okay, so he's gone down this path and he's preserving his American foundation, but what about his coalition? I mean, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, and others are threatening to jump ship. And if that happens, then Netanyahu is in trouble because his government collapses. He's no longer prime minister. he could be arrested and he'll die in prison.
Yeah, he will die in prison. That's what is happening. So let's actually see what else we have. Yair Lapid, the leader of the centrist Yesh Atid party, said a recent meeting had focused on a campaign to topple the government as early as the winter parliamentary session, which begins in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, so very, very soon, after almost 3 months of recess. He said the aim was to form a coalition of quote-unquote correction and healing in Israel, end quote. The opposition politicians, who included former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, also called for the implementation of U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to release hostages and end the Gaza war. Talks on the proposal are currently taking place in Egypt, putting Israelis on tenterhooks for the prospect of release and repatriation of hostages, living and dead. A statement from the group stressed that they would offer Mr. Netanyahu, quote-unquote, a safety net. Okay, so they're preparing for his farewell. Literally, that's what they're doing. They're preparing for his farewell. And remember, this safety net that they're offering, or they will be offering to Netanyahu, will fall apart, because it is impossible for him to get away with every corruption that he committed in Israel. They will forgive him for the genocide, of course. They don't care about people of Gaza. But they would, I don't think this safety net will work, even though they will offer it to him to get a hostage deal through. In the event that far-right parties abandon the coalition in opposition to ending the war, Mr. Lapid described the initiative as quote-unquote insurance for Netanyahu against his extremist and irresponsible partners, end quote. I mean, again, it just shows how prepared they are to get rid of this guy who disgraced the entire nation of Zionist Israel, and they want to get rid of him as soon as possible, as fast as possible, and it might happen within the next couple of weeks. That's what I understand.